All right, so Dragon Ball Breakers. What happened? Is the game thriving? Is it dying? Well, I'm here to essentially say it's kind of dead, but not 100% dead. And let's talk about some of the things, how the game state is and what happened. And we're going to take into the accounts and reviews of people who have hundreds and thousands of hours into it. First of all, my take on the game. I played it when it first came out, so it was very interesting. Everyone was new going in. It was fun. It was exciting. But the game did not have long-term, long play for me. I knew I wasn't going to be playing it a week after. And it wasn't because it was necessarily a bad game. It was just lackluster in the sort of depth and content that I wanted, First of all, the game's graphics were not up to par. It's unfortunate because anything you expect the Dragon Ball, you're like, this is a huge IP. I'm gonna love it. It's gonna be great. You played it and it's like, wow, this is it, huh? I mean, there are some cool ideas. I love the fact that it's asymmetrical. One bad guy, a bunch of survivors, and if you know what you're doing on either end, it becomes a real brawl fest. But here we are, 3 years later in 2025, talking about the game. It released here on October 13, 2022, developed by Dimps, published by Bandai Namco. All reviews, 4,500 on Steam. It's mixed. And this is only people who have bothered to, give it a review. This is not talking about people on like console or anything. But the most important thing here are the recent reviews, which is mostly negative at 90. So let's look at some of the reviews and talk about it. But before we do, let's look at the stats of how many people are actually playing the game. So all-time peak was when the game came out 2 years ago, 4,000 people, which isn't terrible, but at the moment right now, as I am recording this video, it is 3 p.m. on a Saturday, 192 people playing. The game's not 100% dead, but there are interesting sort of things you need to realize with the very small player base that it has. This is a competitive game. Those 190 people know what's going on, and there's hardly any new people going in. And if there is any new people going in, they have to pay. This is not free to play. It's like 20 bucks. You go in, there's like a gacha system, so you have to play a lot, but then you're going to get wrecked by a bunch of players who have been playing the game for years, unless you go in with a friend who kind of teaches you everything. But you can see here the 24-hour peak is 700 people. So within the past 3 months here, you can see here it's been really low at like 400 to 300. And then boom, it peaked in November of 2024 because they came out with season 7. However, it kept starting to, go down a little bit more and it's still trending after that. So it looks like every time they release a new season, it kind of bumps, it goes down, it bumps here, and then it goes down to 300. It bumps, it goes down, it goes up again. So I'm not sure if they are going to make more. I'm not sure if they're going to keep going. But the fact that it's season 7, they might. They just might keep it going. But let's look at the real reviews of what people are saying and why it's mostly negative. Okay. So, here we go. This guy. Okay, so this is last year, 300 hours, right? Let's look at this together. And we're gonna break it apart. I am generally only playing this garbage because of the fact that I've already spent a lot of time on it. That's not a sunk cost fallacy. That's not good. And therefore, quitting would just mean everything I did was for nothing. It's like this guy's never played a video game before. That's how single player games were, dude. You play something like Phantasy Star Online for like thousands of hours, and a couple years later, it's over. Come on, why is the guy complaining about that? This game slowly died. Let's turn this up a little bit. This game slowly died more and more as the seasons go on, and it's on life support. The matchmaking barely works. I've seen this complaint a lot. That's because there's not a lot of people playing. Even if there's 190 people at once, not everyone is going to be queuing at the same time. They're going to be playing with friends. Maybe they're queuing with other people. There's different things in matchmaking that make it so you just can't get matched with people. However, in this game, I believe there's no skill matchmaking. So essentially, you're supposed to have a higher chance of finding people. And I believe it's on consoles too, right? So even the pool is going to be even higher. But I don't know if it's crossplay. Every match is every 10 to 20 minutes. If you're lucky, you'll get to play. Because most of the time, it gives you an error message or it crashes. There's basically only one raider in the game because anyone plays as Goku Black. If you like Goku Black, that's cool. But if you won't like him, that's all you've got. Sometimes if you're lucky, you'll see other raiders. You got Ball Breakers, right? Goku Black, because he's the best raider by a large margin. and as such, nobody else wants to play any other raider. So of course, if you're playing the game, you've played for years, of course you want to play the meta. You've played a bunch of the other ones, you're tired, you're gonna play the latest, the greatest, whatever got buffed, and unfortunately it's gonna be this one. You know, think of it like Dead by Daylight. There's a lot of really good, you know, villains that people like playing. The level of content here has been dwindling over the past several seasons. First, they got rid of the story mode pretty much by the first anniversary. Ooh, that sucks. Then they proceeded to stop giving survivors in the battle pass. So you don't even get people for free unless the battle pass was paid for. Then they stopped giving survivors in general. We haven't seen a new map since Goku Black dropped, and that's almost a year now without a new map. The battle pass this season is literal garbage and is pretty much as full of tickets for the gacha system that shouldn't even be in the game because it's a paid game. Unfortunately, a lot of paid games these days still have battle passes. It's kind of hard to get around, you know. Why is there a gacha system in a paid game? That's not even any pity. It's just a bunch of transfers, which you can turn into mid-game to fight the raider in the same banner, wasting potential slots with 90 things you don't need or warrant. I have 737,000 upgrade points because there's nothing worthwhile to spend them on or even buy. This game is a massive waste of time and money and is obviously going down the drain. I don't recommend anyone plays this game, and honestly, I doubt the game will be around much longer. You know what? I would be very surprised if this gets to the end of 2025 as well. But the fact that they're season 7 and they've had very low numbers since the very start, with small spikes going up and down, not much is changing. So even if they get to like season 9 or 10, it'll still be around the same amount of people playing. The game's not going to get any better unless they redo the whole thing. But I don't know, man. Let's look at one more by someone who has, let's see, a really big amount of hours. 1,000 hours. 1,000 hours. You have to trust this guy, man. This is a competitive game. Let's see what he says. Oh, that's all. This is all. Okay. You queue up for a match. 10 minutes, nothing. You get in. Hooray. 10 to 15 minutes. Disconnects. Game fails. Matchmaking issues. Constant loop screen. You're in a bugged lobby. The game has abysmal matchmaking as well as gacha. One that's used to obtain useful player skills with no pity system. Oh, that's bad. Don't spend money on this. All right, let's look at the last one here. So this is 300 hours. All right. Man, this game can be so much fun, but there's so many problems now with the release of season 6 and 7. Region lock. Ugh. Coastal lock makes it impossible to play with friends unless you custom. Yeah, it is cheap. Goes down to $5. Maybe it's worth it. And you can get by with the free skills and maybe get lucky with pulls, but you have to play a lot and get Zenny or summons to pay for summons. Not ideal. They remove dodge from survivor characters in the sense that it gives no invincibility frames. For the transformations, you can choose at level 1, 2, and 3. They also put the dodge on the cooldown, so you can dodge once and you can slide it for a set amount of time. This wasn't the problem. It was a specific skill. Finally, for the raider, they changed the game to promote certain types of play because a full squad of survivors can easily make the raider look like a joke. Stuns don't have decay, so if a group of coordinator survivors hit you, it's a full stun timer. But that's if you go against a group of experienced players. Solo queue is rough, and the strategies mentioned earlier can involve camping bodies, not leveling up the raider on purpose. That denies supplies for the survivors. And in the game is such a neat idea and so fun. But with how it seems that the developers are either not privy to what the community wants, or perhaps it's the publisher messing with the developer's way of working on the game, or a mix of both, it makes me feel sad. I have been playing since the end of Season 3, and it's been fun, but the introduction of region and coastal lock stuns, playstyles promotion, gacha with no pity, and how much of the game is in general, it's a tough one to recommend. If you can somehow get a lobby of 8 and do a custom, it's fun, but you don't get any rewards that way. I think we are cooked. So that's really bad, and yeah, it sucks that the game, I'm honestly surprised that the game lasted this long. Let's end this look back at a actually recommended review. So I saw one up here and I skipped over it. It's 100 hours. Here we go. After many years of Dragon Ball games, rehashing the same story time after time, Dragon Ball Xenoverse broke the mold and introduced a more experimental gameplay ideas. Dragon Ball The Breakers is a unique spin on the formula. It presents tedious learning curve for beginners, but tremendously rewarding experience for seasoned players. This guy writing for his blog or something? After over 100 hours of gameplay, I can say this is a good game. If you want to play catch up, The game roots, it's roots in Xenoverse. It has the assets, the models, and all the same stuff. The asynchronous experience has its ups and downs. So as the past couple of years, new seasons gives you more villains, familiar civilian characters, but there's a gacha mechanic, a transfer, as well as new maps. The first few seasons gives you welcome content to keep the small community engaged, but 6 and 7 has dropped the momentum. 6 introduced a GT villain baby and civilian characters, but not a new map. The newest season introduces Gamma and Gamma 2, and as much as I appreciate the addition, they are lackluster. No new maps or civilians. Additionally, there's major balancing issues. The Gammas sell max, they're underpowered. I find myself getting cornered and beaten down by survivors. After activating Cell Max, the feeling doesn't change. Not only do you need to manage fighting a giant Piccolo, but you must also handle the 4-level transfer simultaneously to destroy the Super Time Machine. The game is bogged down by horrendous wait times, matchmaking errors, and rage quitting from the villains. Rage quitting is unavoidable. The game attempts to discipline those who quit, but in my experience, it also punishes those with weak connections and temp bans. Most recently, I've waited 13 minutes only to be hit with a matchmaking error. I have always entered matches in 2 minutes though, it's not always bad. From what I can gather, the community is not happy with Season 7. The Breakers has potential. If they were to take player feedback seriously and make the game free to play, it could really breathe new life. But with the lengthy wait times, lackluster content, balancing issues, I recommend waiting for a sale. So 80% of this guy's recommended review is still complaining. So if the game still hasn't changed to what the community likes in Season 7, because let's be honest, in a game like this that is all about, you know, keeping the community alive and asynchronous, it's pure multiplayer only, what are you gonna do? You have to listen to the feedback. And I know game development, it takes months or even years for things approved to go into play, unless these guys already, in the 3 years that they've made the game, they've already had stuff planned from the beginning and they don't want to change the trajectory of how they're developing the game. So we have either two scenarios here. Either they had stuff already from the beginning, and unfortunately they didn't take into account how unbalanced or lackluster things might be in the future as things come out, and they think that everything in the culmination of all those things coming out is good enough, but the players want more, and that's the bad thing. The other thing is they're flying by the seat of their pants, but they're just behind months and months to a year, because that's how game development works. You have to get things approved, especially in a giant IP like Dragon Ball. You can't just add in stuff without going into the sources and be like, is this okay to put in? Can we change this up? They might want to save ideas or mechanics for other future games, or just not available to put in with the base sort of code that they have here. There's a lot of things to consider, but I think at the moment, this game was interesting when it came out. Lackluster for me, which is why I stopped playing it. And unfortunately, even some of the good reviews here are lackluster, and that's why they're also hating it. So that is Dragon Ball The Breakers in a nutshell. In the early 2025, I might revisit it in a year again to see. Maybe we'll come again, and this banner will say Season 9 or something. So we'll see what happens. Ugh.